Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is my 11th WAD progression update. This comes just after I've completed Valiant and just before I take on Alien Vendetta. And I'd like to start off by just talking through some of the Valiant highlights from my side. And I would say it was just an amazing, fun, engaging overall experience for me. I love the maps, I love the energy, tempo, cadence, whatever it is of the maps where they sweep you up from the first fight and carry you through an amazing experience and drop you off in the exit. And I've just enjoyed that and I found that throughout the WAD. I knew that Skillsaw had a high degree of capability for creating high quality WADs because we've played through Ancient Aliens and we've seen that ourselves. What I hadn't expected was that Valiant was going to top that experience, and that is no mean feat. The quality of the WAD and the maps is consistently high throughout, which is remarkable for a 32 map megawad. The opening maps achieve their goal, they set the scene for what's to follow, they build the experience, and you're delivered at the end into an incredible last episode for me, which is an absolute tour de force by Skillsaw. The maps are so well balanced. I love the architecture, the routes are interesting, the fights are fair but challenging. It's definitely kicked it up a notch. I've enjoyed the engagement of the weapon changes, the vastly expanded monster roster that's there, but even with those changes, the fights remain balanced, they're engaging, and the combat is refreshing. I have really enjoyed all of that. And this is all about Skillsaw has just done an incredible job throughout this, but also added into that is some of the soundtracks that play. Again, really great selection of soundtracks. They weren't developed specifically for Valiant, but given they weren't, they're incredibly harmonious with the maps and the combat that you get. So I've really enjoyed that. So let's have a quick look at the weapon changes and monster changes, because they had an incredible impact on the experience in playing through this WAD. Well, what about the weapons? Well, we've got a new pistol and a new chain gun with higher rates of fire, and Doom Guy's got more capacity to carry more bullets. Well, first one is the pistol. As you can see, we get a very rapid hit rate here, 50% faster than the standard pistol we used to in Doom. Very pleasing to use, but it all takes off when you get to the chain gun. Chain gun's got double the rate of fire and melts everything in its path. It's a huge amount of fun to use. So let's go and have a play with it. So let's run in here, traps open, but wait till you see this. I can't imagine what my life was like before this weapon came out. Look at that, it's going to be hard to go back. Let's just get things lined up, do a better job than I'm doing. Come on. There we go. Taking no chances with that. The monsters of Valiant are so diverse and so varied, they are absolutely core to what makes Valiant what it is. So let's have a closer look. The Super Imp. It's had an aesthetic makeover to make it look much more menacing. And you can see it fires volleys of 2 projectiles, and those projectiles move at a much faster rate. Very difficult to deal with when you've got swarms of them. The Super Demon. Much like the original Demon, but it's got mechanized legs that allow it to move much faster. You can see how hard it is to dodge. And be careful when you bait it, because you can easily get a bite in this one. Very hard to deal with large packs of these, so be careful. The Spectre, or Super Spectre, much like the Super Demon, can move much faster, much harder to dodge its bites. So the same thing, but in ghost form. The Super Mancubus. This one's a tough old one. It's got the hit points of a Baron, so quite tanky and tough to take down, and shoots in volleys, or 2 volleys of 6 projectiles. So don't stand out in front of this one, or you're going to take some punishment. The Pyro Knight. The Pyro Knight's an interesting... I think I'm hitting it on its idle frame. The Pyro Knight is an interesting one. It's got 2 different projectile attacks. One, 4 very strong projectiles in a row, like you just saw, and the second one, 2 projectiles with 4 imp projectiles, or super imp projectiles. Either way, don't stand out in front of it or you will be punished. The Cybruiser. This is an interesting new addition. Fires rockets. It's got the same number of hit points as a Hell Knight, so it's not too tanky, but be wary, it's immune to splash damage, so using rockets isn't always the most effective. But watch out for those rockets. It fires a single rocket at a time, but also has close range melee attacks as well. Very interesting. The Arachnotron. This is an interesting one. So, as before, a plasma wielding monster that you need to be very careful of. But if you take it down, you've got a 50% chance of releasing an Arachnorb, which is where the head of the Arachnotron is released from its mechanized body. So this one is tough as well. This can be produced from the Arachnotron, but also can exist in levels on its own. So let's wake it up. What do we got? You got a volley of 3 projectiles. This one is very, very menacing. It can float well out of range where you can't see it easily, descend on you, and fill you full of projectiles. They don't tend to travel on their own, they tend to travel in packs, so be careful if you see them. The Kamikaze. This is an interesting one. It follows you around until it's in close proximity and then explodes. So be super, super careful with these. Much like the Arachnotrons, they don't tend to travel on their own, they tend to travel in packs, so be careful. The Ghost Archvile. This is, as the name would suggest, a ghost variant of the Archvile, but it's got significantly reduced health. At only 300 hit points, which is less than half of that of the standard Archvile, are the same as a typical Revenant. So this one only appears on the second secret map, Ghosts of the Old Kingdom. So let's take it down. And the Ghost Revenant. Again, this is a ghost variant of a Revenant that's got significantly reduced health at only 2/3 the original health of a standard Revenant. And again, it only appears in the second secret map, Ghosts of the Old Kingdom. So let's wake it up and take it down. The Super Vial. This monster appears only in the last level. As the name would suggest, it's a super archvile that has got the hit points of nearly 2 cyber demons, so it's very, very hard to take down. And it's got a pyrokinetic attack, which is like 4 blasts from a standard archvile. If you get hit with those, it's game over. 1, 2, 3, 4. Dead. Oh, the Lightning Orb. This is an interesting one. It's invulnerable, so it cannot be killed or damaged, and it fires a constant stream of plasma. It only appears in the final map, and there are 4 of them in each of the corners in order to stop you from camping and hanging out. You gotta keep moving on that last map or you're going to be punished. So now that we've gotten through all of those, in terms of the skill improvement, let's have a quick recap on that for me. I've learned an awful lot, as you would expect. I think main things for me, I'll try and run through them relatively quickly, but like dealing with hordes of monsters, which was really key to maps like Rocket Zone 2 and Cyber War 7734, that was really interesting. It was a big step up. I haven't seen anything like that since Rush or Scythe or maps of that type, but lots of interesting hordes to deal with. Managing and manipulating enemy positioning was key to things like our maps like the Electric Nightmare at the end, where you've got to keep on the move, you've got to manage your position relative to the Super Vial, and you've got to be keeping awareness of where everything is at all times. Really, really enjoyed that. That definitely helped me as well. I worked on improving my movement, which was particularly noticeable on 2 key maps. One, the Popes of Rome, where it's all about fine positioning and movement, high tier monsters in confined spaces and moving around very precisely in a very structured and coordinated way. And the second one was with A Light Bridge Too Far, was more about kind of long distance movement across larger maps or larger expanses, but moving across the light bridges, which can be curved at speed before the timeout and so on. So managing strafing around in quite complex movements or quite complex motions or over quite long distances, I think that helped me a lot as well on Light Bridge Too Far. Another one is enemy prioritization, resource management, and promoting infighting. These were key to several maps, but in particular, it was burned into my consciousness is map 10 Candle Cove, which combined all of those in a fairly ruthless way for me. Another one for me is the routing. So as standard in playing through a WAD, routing the maps, secret hunting and finding the secrets in it, all those skills have been thoroughly worked out through this WAD. But there are 2 key things I think that maybe haven't occurred in some of the other WADs, are not to the same extent, that I thought were very obvious to me or very apparent to me in Valiant. The first one is just a step up in difficulty. So it has stepped up in difficulty from Ancient Aliens. It's not a punishing step, but it's also not a gentle one. And I felt that stretch really helped me evolve some of my skills in playing through these WADs. So I've learned a lot just from that base level of difficulty coming up a notch. It was very notable and very enjoyable, and I definitely think it helped me a lot. A second key thing for me, which is a little bit more difficult to articulate, is that I feel like it really promoted or helped my level of instinctual play. So I've always been reasonably good in scenarios that evolve in a predictable way, but I felt in Valiant there were lots of fights that didn't evolve in that way, and I felt there were lots of ones where it didn't provide a lot of opportunity to camp or to rest or to take breaks from fights. When the fight starts, you're fully immersed until it's over. There are very few opportunities to take a break or to get cover or do something else. It's kind of full tempo from start to the end, and I think that promoted a lot more kind of instinctual level play in me that I think has helped me a lot as well. So that's the skill improvement side of it. What I'd like to do then, just to wrap up the rest of it, is just cover some map highlights for me. These are specific maps that particularly stood out to me. I find it really, really tough to leave maps out of this, particularly for WADs like this, where the absentees in this list are very notable maps in their own right. But some maps really did stand out to me, and I would like to cover them. So first one for me is map 7, Mancunian Candidate. I just loved the novel mechanic in this. I loved how it was communicated through the signs and through the interactions with the player, and I really, really enjoyed how the Mancubus platform lifted up during the map. I know it's a trivial thing, but I enjoyed that as I progressed through different vertical sections of the map, the Mancubus came with me, and I had to keep an eye on that Mancubus to make sure it didn't die. Otherwise, all of those swarms of archviles would come in and take me on. So really, really enjoyed that map and that mechanic in general. Next one for me is map 9, 12 Angrier Archviles. This is a bit of a funny one for me because, like, obviously these menacing archviles have been deployed strategically throughout the map, but they weren't the focus for me. The biggest thing for me is this is a kind of hub type map which has got a center and loads of different routes you can take, and each route gives you different weapons and different keys. When you get all keys, you can come back to the exit and get out. So you can route these in any order you want, but the routing you choose on it gives you weapons in different orders and fights in different orders. So it's a very strategic way to approach routing, which I really, really enjoyed. But also it makes the maps very, very replayable, because playing them to get a different key or to get the keys or weapons in different orders really changes the way in which the combat evolves. So I really, really enjoyed that. Map 15, Screams Aren't a Crime Yet. I don't know how to describe why I enjoyed this one as much as I did, but it just really, really resonated with me. I think it's related to some of the aspects of Valiant I mentioned earlier, which is about the energy and the tempo of the fights. I just felt on this map, when I started that map, I was fully engaged. I was running fast, I was running hard, I was taking fights on head on, and I was just really, really immersed and really enjoying it throughout. And there's no respite. And there's really memorable fights in that, like chain gunning down all of these zombie men and kamikazes and things that are coming in. But it was just a really fun, locked in type of map to play. So I really, really enjoyed that. Then we're on to map 31, the first secret map, Cyber War 7734. I just loved it. It might be everybody's thing, but like, I know it's well known for its kind of cubist theme and its visually distinctive aesthetics, but it wasn't that for me. It was just a fun, slaughtery challenge for it. It's a very expansive map. It's got very large fights in it. It's boasting something like 1,600 monsters, so it's a big challenge to take on, and I just really enjoyed taking that on. So like, each distinct fight is already a big fight, but overall the map is a bit of a mammoth map. So it kind of has that feel of a rush to destination or a side fire and ice type thing. And what I like about maps of that type for me is that they're a benchmark map. Like, how are my skills doing? How have I been improving? When you take on a map of this type, you really get to get to learn where you are in your skills, because it's very, very punishing if you haven't been developing. And what I found a pleasant surprise for me in that is that, I approached it really well. I understood and decomposed the map really quickly, and I was able to work my way through it and complete that in a fairly straightforward way. So it's definitely given me some very positive reinforcement that my skills are evolving in a good way. Then on to map 19, the Popes of Rome. I've kind of mentioned this already, but just very tight spaces, a very compact map, very high tier enemies, so Super Mancubi, Cyber Demon, Arachnotron, Pyro Knights, and so on. Like, in very confined spaces where you're moving very quickly. You're ammo starved on this one, resource starved on it, so you need to be really careful and promote infighting. But just moving around enemy swarms of that density on very compact maps gives you an awful lot of opportunity to improve and to work on your movement skills. So I really, really enjoyed that. Then map 27, Rocket Zone 2, the final countdown map. It has the feel of two maps, which is probably true from the Lunatic series, but like, it is the feel of two maps that have been pushed together. Each of those maps kind of independently being an incredible map in its own right, but they've just merged so harmoniously or so well together. It's been such a fun and incredible experience to play through them. So in the outer part of the map, I really enjoyed just the broad map, the different fights that are there, but particularly the setting. Things like, walking into an arena and seeing the rockets standing ominously in their silos. It's just an incredible feel to that map that I've really, really enjoyed. And then you get to the secret part and you get into the final countdown one. And this is just another one of those big iconic fights, much like Ancient Aliens Map 29, the ones behind it all. There's kind of an annular arena. You're working through it. You've got 10 kind of waves of monsters coming in. They're getting progressively more challenging to deal with, and you cannot stand still. And this is kind of what I mentioned earlier as well. You gotta keep moving. There's no little crate you can stand behind or little bit of cover you can get. You just gotta keep moving. But you can't only keep moving because the monsters are coming in so rapidly. You get overpowered really, really quickly. So you need to take the fight head on and keep moving at the same time. So it's a very, very interesting and unique challenge for me. I've really, really enjoyed it. And just the whole way that was delivered around the countdown sequence and the music and stuff was just absolutely amazing. I think by the time I got to the end of it, I was absolutely sweating adrenaline. And I can remember like my hands trembling and taking a moment at the end just to calm myself before I moved on with my playthrough. So really, really memorable and iconic. Really, really enjoyed it. Map 28, I'll give a quick shout out to that. A light bridge too far. I mentioned already, I loved the architecture of the map. I love the different sections of it. I love how they're connected through the light bridge. Lots of interesting fights in it. Lots of interesting routing to do. And it's just, I just really enjoyed the mechanics of it and moving around it and understanding and learning more about that map. It was just a fun challenge in that way. Then we move on to map 29 Redshift. I had an awful lot of fun with this one. It's another very broad, heavy map, but it's got a lot of exploration in it. There's a lot of different sections and different places and teleporters and things. So a lot of spatial information to get your head around. But I just really loved how it was all knitted together. Particularly enjoyed the kind of the strategies for how to route it, how to find your way around. I really enjoyed finding the Berserk pack secret on that one. I was just messing around hopping between platforms in practice, and I stumbled across it, and I really enjoy things like that. I really enjoy where maps allow you to explore in that way. It's not going to fade from my memory for a very long time because I just really enjoyed it. In particular, the ledge with all of the imps, where you run along it with a stream of rockets in front of you, and you're just clearing the imps out of your path as you run. I like that. That's going to stay with me for a long time. I really, really enjoyed that. And then finally, we get to map 30, Electric Nightmare. This is an incredible finale map for me, which is such an enjoyable experience, so much more enjoyable in my mind than the Icon of Sin experiences I've had to date. But the lightning orbs are there; they keep pushing you and keeping you on your toes. You got to keep moving. You can't camp. Like this team that comes through Valiant for me, you cannot stand still. There's 4 of these punishing you from different sides of the map, so you've got to keep moving. You also have the Super Vial, which is very, very tanky and very hard to kill. So you've got to keep your movement relative to it. You've got to keep moving around the map in a good way. You have to just attritionally start to take its health down. And when it's gone, just tidy up that map. But it was so, so much fun to do it. I really, really enjoyed it. So, as I say, with this, that's the end of that part of it. There were no kind of missable or forgettable maps in this. I enjoyed them all, but those were definitely the highlight ones for me. And definitely, that last episode is just so, so incredible for me. So highly recommend it. I hope you guys play through it and have some fun with it. But just to say as well, in all of the playthroughs that I've had, as always, I'd like to thank the community for all the assets and things that I used. I use a whole load of different things. I try and use as much as I can. So widescreen asset, sprite fixes, level names, DSDA Doom port, the ZDL Doom launcher, and so on. So for all of the things I use and the assets I use and the community developed products that I use, I always link them in all of the descriptions of my videos. So have a look there if you're interested in finding out some of those for yourself. But honestly, for me, the biggest issue with Valiant is it's shown to me what's possible through Doom, and it worries me now about the future when I look to play through other WADs where I have my Valiant lens on, and some of them are going to look, like stand up less well to that scrutiny, particularly some of the older WADs that are out there. So I think Valiant has set a standard that can be very, very tough for other WADs to keep up with. Okay, so let's look ahead at the WADs that we'll be playing, in particular Alien Vendetta. So this is our standard snapshot that tracks our progress as we play through all of these WADs, and you can see that it's been updated. We now have a tick mark against Valiant, indicating that our playthrough of that WAD has now been completed. We've got a target or a bullseye against Alien Vendetta, indicating that that's the current WAD we've just started playing through. And we've got a question mark against Hell Revealed, indicating that that's the next WAD we're expecting to take on once our playthrough of Alien Vendetta has been completed. And I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into Alien Vendetta, but honestly a little bit apprehensive that moving back to a kind of traditionally focused WAD, having enjoyed the experience of the two Skillsaw WADs back to back, might be quite challenging. So Skillsaw WADs were very modern, slick and elegant. I'm a little bit conscious of kind of moving back to a WAD set that might feel, in retrospect or by modern standards, maybe a little bit dreary or a little bit dated. So really looking to find out, hoping that's not the case, but it remains to be seen. So let's hop over to the DoomWiki to find out a little bit more about Alien Vendetta. So we can see here, Alien Vendetta is a megawad containing 32 new maps. So we're going to have lots more content to play through in the channel. We can see that it's got hard levels, which is not that surprising given the progression that we're playing through of increasingly more challenging WADs. We're definitely getting towards the very, very challenging end of the spectrum, particularly for me. So it's notable for that, so just be aware of it. And we can see that it was released in 2001, but there was a secondary release in December of 2002. And just to be really clear, it is the secondary release in December 2002 that we'll be playing through on the channel. And we're choosing this one, but be aware as well, it's got some fairly notable map changes from the original release. So just keep an eye on that if that's of interest to you. We can see here from the summary table, authors are various. This has been a very collaborative looking project. It was headed up by Anders Johnson, and it does look to have a very strong representation from the Norwegian Doom mapping community. But there are quite a few other mappers in there as well, and creators in there as well, providing content for this. We can see that the port is Vanilla Doom, so this is using the original Vanilla Doom engine, so this will be comp level 2. We can see that the iWAD is Doom 2, so it will require the Doom 2 iWAD to get all of the assets to play through. And it was released in 2001, but again we'll be playing through the 2002 version, and there's a link here to download it if you're interested in playing along as well. And just one final note here is that in 2002 Alien Vendetta was voted #1 in the top 100 WADs of all time, so it's definitely coming with quite a strong pedigree. And if we scroll down here, we can see all of the different maps that are here. We've got lots and lots of stuff to play through. Again, as mentioned before, lots of kind of areas here where we've got lots of different names for the mappers involved in these, and also in many maps more than one mapper being involved. So it looks like quite a collaborative project to develop these. In terms of the soundtrack is largely extracted from kind of other pre-existing sources, but as far as I'm aware, Map 20 has got an original soundtrack developed as part of the original release for Alien Vendetta, so I will try and make a bit of an effort to include that in the playthrough as well. But beyond that one, I will be using the Alien Vendetta MIDI pack. So this was a community developed MIDI pack as part, which was run through the Doomworld forum, and it's kind of homage to Alien Vendetta, which has got such a fantastic kind of reputation within the Doom community, to create a new and kind of vibrant soundtrack that matches this, but is created specifically for Alien Vendetta. So all new content. I'm really, really looking forward to playing through with that new soundtrack as well. So let's hop over to our ugly Excel sheet and see what our future looks like. So we can see Valiant here. This is all green, which means we've completed the playthrough process for all of Valiant. That was a good old effort, but very, very enjoyable as well. And we can see here, as we move down to Alien Vendetta, we've got a lot more work to do. So this is the standard structure. We've got WAD details, we've got software and settings, and we've got channel tracking. So I'll go through each of these. In terms of WAD details, the main things to be aware of are we'll be using the Alien Vendetta AV.WAD. This is the 24th of December 2002 release. We're going to be using the AV MIDI.WAD, which is the community developed soundtrack that I mentioned, but we will make an exception, or try to make an exception, for Map 20, where we'll try and include something from that as well. And also we're using the widescreen assets that have been developed by the community as well, so things like the bar at the bottom and extending that. Okay, so that's what that looks like. In terms of the maps themselves, these are all the maps listed here. You can see that in terms of number count, we've got some work to do ahead of us. We're getting into the high hundreds in a lot of these. So starting off at something like 300, getting up to 500, 600, 700 even. You go a bit further down and you can see that the challenge is starting to ramp. So in this last section, we've got 1,325 enemies on map 25 demonic hordes, 1,000 on map 26, 840 on map 27 and so on. So there are a lot of monsters in this map pack, and we're going to have a lot of work to do to complete this, but looking forward to it nonetheless. And also in terms of secrets, when you look through these, there's some very large numbers here. So map 12 Entropy has got 11 secrets. We've got 9 on map 8 Beast Island. You go a bit further, we've got 10 on Demonic Hordes, map 25, 13 on map 27 and so on. So a lot of secret hunting in our future. But I do enjoy that, so it's a nice change as well. In terms of software and settings, I'll be using for the port DSDA Doom version 0.25.6. Been really enjoying that. The engine we'll be using is Doom 2 Hell on Earth version 1.9, and the settings we're using full screen, skill 4, which is ultra violence, and comp level 2 because it's it's creating the Doom 2 engine, the original Doom 2 engine. So just one thing to be aware of, I'll just note it at the start for once, is that I traditionally have used the hardware or OpenGL renderers for playing through all the different WADs. I've changed it for this one. I've moved to the software renderer for all of the playthrough of Alien Vendetta. The main reason for that is when I started playing map 1, I saw some visual glitches. I checked it out on the Doomworld forums to see where that was coming from, and it is a rendering type issue. So because of that, I'll link it in the description if you like more information on it, but because of that, decided to move to the software renderer for these, which is absolutely fine as well. The launcher I'm using is ZDL 3-1.1, the standard launcher I've always used. And you can see in channel tracking here, this is where we'll track the progress of the playthroughs and the video and content being updated and released to the channel. You can see that I've gotten fairly heavily stuck in already by the time of this video. So I've 18 maps already played through and recorded, uploaded onto the channel, and I've released up to number 10 of that map. So lots and lots of content there already. But if you would like to follow along in any of the playthroughs, just be aware that the standard thumbnail format will be used. This is what it looks like for map 1. So we've got the WAD name here, Alien Vendetta. We've got the map ID here. We've got the map name here, and then on the side we've got Doom 2 logo just to indicate that it's a Doom 2 WAD we're playing through. And also for quick visual reference, we've got the Alien Vendetta logo, and that's just a visual cue to allow you to quickly pick this up as being part of this playthrough series if you'd like to follow along. So really looking forward to getting through some more of these and updating these to the channel. Thanks very much for all the support and for listening to the video, and I'm really looking forward to talking to you in my next video.